Up there is where I finished last night, or yesterday afternoon anyway. So this is the start of my day 4 Berlin Wall Trail. Then there's a lot of traffic around this morning as it's 8 AM and it's rush hour. So there has been about 4 inches of snow overnight, which is quite a lot actually. It's quite deep. You have to lift your feet up a lot. So I'm going to be burning extra calories today. But you know, there are worse things, aren't there? I'm not going to moan over 4 inches of snow. It's lovely. It's absolutely beautiful. And you know, in secret, I'd hoped for a little bit of snow. Why wouldn't you? If you're going to do the Berlin Wall Trail in the dead of winter, you could expect much worse conditions than this. So I will just crack on and get on with it. No moaning. Just aim for Potsdam, which is 18 miles away. But I won't be walking the whole 18 miles today. Oh no, oh no. Because along this route there is a huge body of water where the borderline of the wall once ran through water. And there's only one way to cross it, and that is by ferry. So at some point mid-morning, I will be taking a ferry ride. So this is a long, long stretch of road, this. It goes in a straight line south practically for over 2 miles, maybe more, maybe 3. So over there would have been a giant wall. Just across the road there. Long wall. All the way down the road there, as far as your eyes can see. But on the left, things haven't changed much. Basically, the infrastructure of the wall resembled the most maximum level security prison. The most high-risk prisoners. This is like, you know, some sort of prison from a science fiction film. But, yeah. Oh, got to watch out for these big clumps of snow coming down on me. Yeah, the Berlin Wall wasn't science fiction. It was science reality. I mean, if you think about what North Korea is, you know, North Korea is a brutal dictatorship, and things are so hard on the population there that, you know, it stunted their growth and evolution. You know, people are sick. They are prisoners still now. But visually, I think visually on the eye, I think the GDR was even worse. You know, just the psychology of looking at that wall, that barrier, that strip of death separating families and friends and neighbours. What must life have been like for people living in the German Democratic Republic? You know, what was it to be an East German? You know, what we do know is that floods of people try to escape East Germany, and that's why they built the wall in the first place, not to separate, but to keep people in, because it was just bleeding people, bleeding workers to the west. And of course, at the rate the people were leaving, the economy would have just collapsed. So it was basically an economic decision taken by a communist government. And yeah, I think they flirted with the idea. They kind of teased that they were going to do it. You know, I think they quite malicious actually. They would say, "No, you'd have to be here. Of course, we're not going to build a wall." They say we're going to build a wall, and then they did. They did build a wall. One morning, the citizens of Berlin woke up to find thousands of guards and workers literally bricking up the city. You know, bricking up houses, bricking up roads. There's some famous clips of people trying to lower their grandparents down out of windows and then being heaved up by the guards and being like tug of war. Some really kind of, I hate to say it, iconic, horrible iconic imagery of those days. I can think of a very famous one where the GDR guard in the full regalia, GDR regalia, just threw his machine gun down and just legged it. Just dived for cover and got across the border. We know it was pretty miserable just from the amount of people who tried to leave it. You know, the ugly truth of the matter when it comes to the East German economy, you know, building the wall did kind of save it. You know, it did. Its task was to save the economy, to keep the GDR afloat, and it succeeded in that. It just made millions of people a prisoner in the process, but I think what I've said previously, when reunification happened, the West might have been a little bit heavy-handed, because regardless of the circumstances and Germany coming together again as one nation and East Germany being a dictatorship with living conditions, you know, pretty miserable compared to the West, it was their home. So I think the living conditions of those citizens in East Berlin compared to those citizens living in West Berlin were pretty grim actually in comparison. West Germany had huge infrastructure investment stemming from like the Marshall Plan and so on and so forth. That's another, George Marshall is another story. But yeah, huge investment, you know, and very much Western capitalism in full gallop, really. I mean, West German prosperity began pretty quickly, actually. You know, the Germans, they are a determined bunch with a strong work ethic, you know, and a confidence. Even though they were shattered post-war, they still had the guts and the determination. You know, the West Germans really got to it, building up a new country. And economic prosperity followed very, very quickly. People in the East could see this. So they were looking at the West and thinking, you know, they've got things much better than we have. And of course, the exodus began. The brain drain began. Particularly amongst the young people. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't that happen? That happens everywhere. As recent election results have shown, there is a certain nostalgia for the old East Germany amongst folks of a certain age. And, you know, regardless of all the brutality of that dictatorship, you know, for a whole generation or two of people, that's all they knew. And East Berlin and the GDR was their home. It was their home. You know, and it wasn't all bad. It never is all bad. You know, there was a terrific sense of community. Berliners, famous for their dark humour. You know, and they were kind of busted a gut, you know, to make a better life for themselves. You know, so there have been some kind of election results in the Brandenburg area and the wider area surrounding Berlin, because remember, all the country surrounding Berlin was all German Democratic Republic. You know, West Berlin is like a kind of matrix within a matrix, like a dream within a dream. West Berlin, a small kind of island of freedom, interred within a prison that was all part of a wider prison of the GDR. Ugh. Yeah, dream within a dream from inception. That's what West Berlin was like. Really should get my camera out a little bit more today. In fact, do I need to get my camera out? I don't think so. Don't you just love talking about geopolitics when you're out for a walk? Yeah, I don't. I really don't. I'll edit as much politics out of this film as I can. I have to talk about some, unfortunately, because, as I said previously, this is probably the most political through hike in the world. So, I'm pretty sure I just saw, and I'm not going mad, I think I just saw a wild boar and a young wild boar playing in the snow over there. This is something in my research that I've neglected. What wild animals might harm me whilst I'm on my walk. Oof. God for that. So I'm happy to be off that side of that main road, trudging through the thick snow on that section. But back onto the scraped asphalt. Very nice for a time anyway. So I've just walked basically for 3 miles in a straight line southwest from West Spandau, and I'm kind of heading south now towards Kladow, or Kladow. Not quite sure how you pronounce it. Kladow. Which is where I get my ferry. All I know about the ferry, I think it's called the F10 ferry, and it runs on the hour. About 3 miles, 25-minute ferry crossing. I've got no idea how much it costs, but yeah, I'm sure it's not going to break the bank, is it? They're very good like that here. You know, pretty reasonable ticket prices. Oh, wow. So here we have some wall infrastructure. I just got talking to a very sweet old lady. I hope I'm not being rude. She was quite old. Her English was really good. I mean, and she told me that there are lots of wild boar in the area, and that they will leave you alone as long as you don't seem like a threat to them. And she was very clear to say that I couldn't possibly be a threat to them. I was far too charming. And she was bowled over with my wit. And assured me that the boar would be too. So that's set my mind at ease a little bit. So now in this rather delightful piece of landscape. Very nice. And the sun is desperately trying to make an appearance. Okay. So it's now 10 o'clock, 10 a.m, 14th of February, and I'm about 4 miles into my walk. I think in about an hour I will reach the ferry terminal at Kladow, and I think that's probably be around about my halfway point of the entire walk. Maybe just under, maybe when I get off the ferry. But in terms of mileage, that will be coming close to the halfway mark. In terms of days, I'm already over halfway. I'm on day 4, and I'm doing this walk over 6 days, 6 full days. So crazy to think that the wall, the death strip, ran along this shoreline. It's so beautiful, peaceful and tranquil. It's madness. Madness. I mean, my thoughts really are already turning to tomorrow. Not because there's nothing going on today, there's plenty going on today. But tomorrow is quite a big one. 25 miles through mostly, I think the middle third is all forest, final third towards Schoenfeld airport area. It's kind of like the outskirts of South Berlin urban environment. But there's things to see tomorrow. There's quite a lot to see, actually. And as I've mentioned, the big checkpoint Bravo, or what's left of it, the main checkpoint where you used to enter West Berlin from East Germany. So I think there's a few things to see in that area. Well, I don't think I know. Dare I say it, getting a little bit overheated due to the trudging, the constant trudging. So I might have to take a layer off, but that's about the summit of my woes at the moment. I think I'm about a mile and a bit away from the ferry terminal now. Not far. Not far. So I'm basically coming towards the shoreline of where I catch my ferry just down the way a bit. So I just came from there. The Berlin Wall itself actually carried on that way, hugging the shoreline, but to a dead end, because over here the line of the wall actually went through a body of water, and the only way to cross that body of water is by ferry, obviously, which I get down here. So it feels a bit wrong that I am leaving the footprint of the Berlin Wall for a moment, but yeah, you can see the banks where it was up there. We've come across there like that and then just turned right and gone down there. Can you imagine it? Concrete wall there, guard towers, blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay, so Kladow is this way. So it's It's actually more than a mile down this road. It's more like 2 miles, but it's 11:30. I should get there for 12. Hopefully it's not arriving for half an hour and I can grab a cup of coffee or something, because I need a little bit of energy boost. Cool houses. Interesting. Like fully concrete, but with tiled panels on the front of them. Interesting. I've never seen anything like them. But I do like them in a kind of groovy kind of way. I can't believe I said the word groovy, but I mean, I think there will be a post there at some point in the future saying this is the spot where Mark Lascelles Thornton uttered the word groovy, just there by that lamppost. So I'll come and do it again in another 10 or 15 years, and I will expect to see it. Of course, look at all these people coming down this road. They've obviously just got off a ferry. That is my assumption anyway, at first. So, finally arrived at the ferry terminal. It should be somewhere just down here. So, this is it. This is where I get my ferry. So now I just wait, I guess. So I just had a coffee at that delightful little beer garden. People started showing up for the ferry, so I await it presently. Boarded the ferry with a feeling of trepidation, as these waters, surrounded by outstanding natural beauty, had once been the stage of one of human nature's great acts of evil. For Wannsee had been the place where the infamous conference had taken place, which dispassionately outlined in detail the systematic murder of an entire people. Essentially a boardroom meeting of 15 civil servants, lawyers and bureaucrats. Clothed in SS uniforms, they generalized an entire race of people as if they weren't even human beings anymore. There, while sitting around a table, they organized the intended annihilation of 6.5 million men, women, and children. The house in which the sinister Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich had chaired the conference still stands as a museum I had intended to visit. But upon seeing it across the gentle waters, I decided I had already been close enough. If you've seen the film Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks and Mark Rylance, that famous bridge where there was, lots of spy exchanges, prisoner exchanges between the Soviets and the Allies at this bridge. That's why it was later known as the Bridge of Spies, but it's the bridge that we will be crossing, or I will be crossing, as we head into Potsdam. So that should be quite interesting. I think Potsdam was fairly damaged during the war, but nothing like Berlin. And Potsdam is seen as almost like a satellite capital of Prussia, what was Prussia, not so much Germany. Prussia is a very, again, Again, people think Germany's been around forever, and it kind of has, in terms of being a large area, but most of Germany's existence, it was made up of lots of states, lots of realms and kingdoms, which only united when Bismarck united it at the end of the Franco-Prussian War, where the German Empire was proclaimed. If you're into your nation-state history and your military history, because Prussia was a major military power, just a war machine. So that the centre of all that is here in Potsdam, burial place of Frederick the Great. So also, I think where most of the palaces were built. I think they built a palace every time they won a war or a battle, so the Prussians have basically got a lot of palaces. If you did somehow make it across there, breach the wall, the first wall somehow, if you got caught in the death strip, you were executed essentially, because the GDR had a shoot to kill policy. And if you want any idea who the bad guys were in this particular conflict, us in the West, our faults are many, but we wouldn't do what they did. So if you manage to somehow get across the first wall and made your way into the death strip, and if a guard saw you, their orders were to shoot you. No questions asked. Shoot to kill. Even if you tripped and fell in the death strip, or got tangled up in barbed wire or something and were incapacitated and not going anywhere, they would still shoot you on the spot, execute you. I mean, it happened a lot, happened all the time. Send a message to anyone thinking of escaping, or for some reason trying to break in. That happened too as well, believe it or not. There was the odd occasion where somebody did try to escape from the west to the east. Probably a spy, generally a spy basically, or an informant or some kind of double spy who needed to escape the west. So a handful of people that in that situation got shot as well. But it's just brutal barbarism. We can be cynical and we can complain about our own crimes, of which, we should be well aware of our own faults, that's healthy. It's healthy. Self-questioning is healthy. We're in this country, we're, the capital of taking responsibility for your actions. But let's not kid ourselves. For all our faults, we are nothing compared to a totalitarian state like the GDR. You can be cynical and say, well, we don't have our freedom either, we're not free, blah blah blah, and you can get into the whole free will debate, and that's a different debate, completely different. This is about the political reality of life and living. Some people say, well, we don't have any freedom really, and we don't have democracy. The media run everything, the banks run everything, big energy runs everything. It's all smoke and mirrors. They just want to control us. Well, yeah, all of that is true, partly true. But let's not pretend it's anything like living in North Korea or the GDR or the Soviet Union or any of the Eastern Bloc states. It's nothing like it. And it's insulting, actually, to say that it is. Insulting to all those people who suffered in those countries. Insulting to all those people that died in Hungary and Czechoslovakia, and Romania. It's insulting to them. They really did have it bad. Us in the West, we have it easy in comparison. All our problems are first world problems. Wow, that old boy. This one. Yeah, the trees are massive here. Massive. Thick, old, big old boys and girls as well. Mustn't forget the girls. Just huge trunks on them. They didn't all get chopped down to build the Royal Navy, like in my country. I mean, you can tell they're boys and girls trees. Some of them just have had enough of each other. I mean, look at this one here. It's just had it with this one. Just can't bear to sit next to him anymore. The body language is terrible. It's a ferry. Who gets this ferry? I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful, yeah. I don't want to startle him. So, about 3 miles now, and then Potsdam. I think once we reach the edge of this kind of peninsula, the Bridge of Spies should come into view. Yeah. Look at this. So can't quite see the bridge yet. this bridge coming up, the Bridge of Spies, as it's known, it was a major military kind of installation dash crossing. Soviet guards, British and American army going through with their documents. Could be a few hours waiting. The irony is, the Soviet armed forces hated the GDR, the German, East German security forces, more than they hated the British and Americans. In fact, from what I've heard, they could be quite cordial, you know. I won't say cordial, they were not allowed to be cordial. There was no fraternising with the Cold War enemy. And I think you know, if a Soviet officer was being a little bit over friendly with a British soldier or an American soldier, you had to report it, because it was possibly them trying to make a bit of an approach, shall we say. But regardless of that, there would be an occasion where a British or American serviceman or woman would get pulled by the Stasi, and the Allied serviceman or woman would wind the window down and say, "I'm not dealing with you," because they didn't acknowledge the GDR's existence, basically, and would say, "Listen, you know, we'll wait here, but bring us a Soviet, please, because we won't do business with you." And there's nothing they could do about it. They'd have to trundle off and get a Soviet to come and deal with the pesky British or Americans. And that relationship would be quite cordial, because after all, you know, the British, the Americans and the Soviets were allies originally during the war. So the Soviets still had that ingrained hatred, really, for the East Germans, even though they were now allies. But this bridge, it's actually called the Gleneeke Bridge. Here in front of me, it's coming into view through the trees. That green bridge. That is it. Let's see if we can get a nice view of it from down here. And there she is. The Bridge of Spies. Or, going by its real name, the Gleneeke Bridge. So let's get ourselves across it. There won't be any evidence that this was ever a major military border crossing. I imagine there will be some signs and some information boards though. So hopefully we'll be able to show you what it looks like. Alpacas. Yeah, all this would have been gates and crossing facilities guard houses. So, of course, how it looks now. I mean, this is the East German side, so all of this down here would have been a wall right up to the bridge. Oh, look, military vehicle going past there. It's the closest you'll get to 40 years ago. Okay. Yeah, so the wall would have run all the way along here to the bridge. So we are back on the actual footprint of the wall. So I think standing in front of the bridge of Spies, the Gleniki Bridge, is probably an appropriate place to end this wee film, part 4. And I will be back here first thing tomorrow morning.